Well, thanks for joining us and welcome to Huntley Hope. And due to the nature of this program, please be advised we'll be dealing with some sensitive content in this episode. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between the ages of 10 and 24.
With the fame of television series like 13 Reasons Why, we're hearing more discussion in the media about this issue of suicide.
And today we'll be sharing excerpts from the Crossroad-produced documentary Inside Teen Suicide.
You'll hear stories of some young people who have attempted suicide, stories of families that have lost loved ones due to suicide, and an expert who will give us tips on how we can reach out to loved ones that you might suspect are contemplating taking their life. We'll start with Katie's story.
Suicide rates have been going up overall. 8% of high school students said that they had made a suicide attempt in the past 12 months. Almost 16% of high school students say that they had seriously considered suicide in the past 12 months. All of those numbers in regards to the questions about suicidal thought, suicidal behavior went up. Did that have to do with changes in prescription practices or treatment practices of clinicians? Or was there something else that was changing in the environment or in the society that put those adolescents at risk?
Grand Rapids, Michigan, a community recently voted the #1 place in America to raise a family, also has an unusually high teen suicide rate.
My parents have been married for 25 years. I have 5 sisters. We're all biological. We go to church every Sunday. There's not any problems at all. One day, I just realized that I wasn't having fun. Life wasn't, like everyone always said, life is fun, you know, they're out doing stuff. I rather had just been dead. Because, like, my family's really religious, and, like, I rather be in heaven being happy than living here. I felt like this was hell itself already. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. It took, like, all of my strength to just get up and get ready. I couldn't bring myself happiness. I relied on everybody else. And sometimes they left and I had nothing. And those are the points where, like, the suicidal thoughts just took over.
I think that one of the dangers is if that person does not get any help, that they can become so focused on what the problem is and what the crisis is that they don't see the avenues for resolution.
I had medication and I went off it because I felt like I didn't need it, nothing helped. The counselors never helped, and so I realized that there was no hope. So my parents were all gone. I think they were camping. Finally, all my sisters were gone, and I did research. I spent hours on the computer researching because I'm scared of pain and I didn't want to do it. I heard that, like, if your car was old enough, if you did the hose, you hooked it up and you put it in your car, that would actually kill you. And my car was an old car, so I hooked up the hose. I used a whole roll of duct tape, put it in, started the car, and sat there for about a minute. And I just started crying because, like, the question of, will I go to heaven? Because, like, what if hell is even worse than what I am right now? I don't know how I would deal with that. So I called my mentor, Christy Buck, and she came to my house, and we just sat there and talked.
All right, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. When I was depressed in high school, my vice principal, he called her right up and said that she had to come down and talk to me, and we ended up meeting every Wednesday through high school. And she was like, became my best friend, and she's the only reason I'm here.
It's a medical condition because this is your brain, and in it there's chemicals. See those bright colors? Those chemicals make you feel good. And when you get depressed, your brain gets bluer. Depression is everywhere. And so we know that 1 in 5 kids will at some point have some type of emotional disorder during their high school years. And so what we know is that we need to start talking about it. And so in this community, we are talking about suicide. So if I just kept stepping on your arm and stepping on your arm and stepping on your arm, we would know it because you'd be screaming in pain, right? But now when Delia, somebody is stepping on her with their words and how they're treating her, and she's emotionally distraught, but nobody really cares because they don't care to get to know her, they're basically stepping on her brain. We need to really start talking about the main issues here, and that is for kids to recognize the signs and symptoms in themselves of a mental illness. Because we know ultimately that those who die by suicide were depressed, 9 out of 10 times.
My mom, love her to death, but she was just trying to fix me, like trying to make it go away, but it's not gonna go away. It's something I have to live and deal with, and no one understands the thoughts that go through my head and why I can't just turn it off.
I think that with depression, it can be situational where it's there. Maybe it's gonna be dormant for a little bit, and then certain stressors are gonna trigger that off again.
I thought that was the worst because I figured that was the lowest of lows, and then about, I'd say 3 weeks later, it all came back, and I told myself this time I wasn't gonna chicken out because that was enough. So I went and bought a hunting knife, and I started cutting myself in my car. And I'm not good with pain, so I was just a hot mess, and it wasn't good. And for some reason, I had the urge to turn on the radio. And so I was losing a lot of blood, and I was weak, and I went to go push on the radio, and my finger slipped over to the one that I don't normally listen to, and it was a Christian station, and the song from Matthew West, Strong Enough, was playing.
You must think I'm strong to give me what I'm going through.
And if you ever listen to that song, it's talking about how you don't have to be strong enough to deal with it. You can talk to other people. And I realized that maybe it's okay that I'm not strong enough to be here and I don't want to, and it's okay to get help. At the time, I didn't think anything of God. I really didn't. But then when I pushed that station and that song was playing, I knew that that was not just a song that they were randomly played. He meant for that to be played that exact moment. And that was him talking to me.
What a powerful story, and I'm glad it turned out well for Katie and her family, because the stigma that's placed on families that have had a suicide is pretty intense.
Yeah, and especially the stigma that comes with depression and mental health. And I love what Katie said, that she found hope, but she also knew that she needed help, and she needed to find help with multiple times trying to take her life. And she finally found a counselor that she could talk to. And I hope that that is an encouragement to you today, that maybe you are contemplating taking your life. Maybe you know somebody who's had some suicidal thoughts or struggling with depression. Get them connected with a counselor. Get them connected with somebody who can talk to them and show them that there is hope. We also have our prayer lines, the numbers at the bottom of your screen. Now, our prayer partners are not professional counselors, but they can pray with you and then direct you to someone who can really counsel you through that process.
And having, 4 kids and, going through the teens and early 20s, we've heard many stories, of those that were contemplating suicide, depression, because there is a lot of pressure. And whether it's a good home or a broken home, or where there's been abuse or things look good on the outside, sometimes they can be the most vulnerable ones. And we know the bullying and all the things that are going on. So we are living in a very difficult time. And as Maggie said too, if you are struggling with that or know somebody that has, we again do have those prayer lines. So we'd encourage you to call in, and at least we can direct you in the right place.
Now let's take a listen to another riveting story about a young man from the documentary Inside Teen Suicide.
Clinical depression is definitely categorized as a mental illness, and it is one of the big risk factors for suicidal behavior. So it's not just clinical depression, but oftentimes it's an interaction of things that influence that individual.
Another high school student from Grand Rapids, Zach Myers, suffered from severe depression. Desperate for attention and desperate for help, he was 15 years old when he lit his house on fire.
It just made him feel worthless, and I don't want to do that. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm done, because I don't want to feel this way anyways, and boom, I'm just gonna throw some gasoline down and light a match and run.
Aggressive behavior, the giving away of prized possessions, an actual threat, these can be suicidal warning signs.
I saw all these different signs. I just didn't know what he was thinking. I just had a feeling it wasn't going well.
The messages tend to be similar. It's sometimes subtle things like, I wonder if anybody'd miss me if I was gone. It wouldn't make any difference if I wasn't here. I think that they're communicating the same hopelessness, the same despair, the same darkness of the soul, and they need to be responded to.
So it was that Friday, and he was supposed to go to his dad's. And his dad's like, I can't get him, going through a divorce, and I have to get things out of the house. And I'm sure Zach read that on my phone, because he was using my phone, and thought, oh, here my dad goes, another marriage number 4 down. And that's what my life is gonna be like. I can't have a girlfriend, no one loves me. I was gonna go out with my girlfriend, Katie, and so I said, Katie, you know what, I can't go out. I said, I gotta stay home, Zach's not well. And we're gonna have a fire. Zach's like, I'm just gonna go and read. So I got up right away and I checked on him. I'm like, Zach, and I didn't see him in the basement. I walked upstairs. I'm like, Zach, maybe you went for a walk. And then I went back downstairs and there he was. And I ran over to him. And I just grabbed him, I screamed. I just screamed as soon as I saw him. I grabbed him, I picked him up. He's breathing, I can hear him, you could hear him gasping, It had to just be, like, right then. I mean, it had to just be soon. I know it was soon, so I thought, oh, he's gonna come back, because I could hear him. And so I'm standing on the road, and I'm just screaming, hurry up, hurry up. I kept thinking they were gonna bring him back, because I know I heard him breathe. And then they told me that they weren't gonna. And that was the worst thing ever. And he's laying on the basement floor, and I just never want to let him go. I don't want to let him go. I just want to hold on to him. And
sometimes people commit suicide to inflict harm, but most often it's a teenager who feels like that no one will ever miss them, that they'd be better off dead, when in reality there is nothing more devastating to a family or friends than a loved one who takes their life. Young people don't even know what life is when they're getting ready to extinguish themselves. It's the loss of what could have been a rich and full life. And we know now that close friends and family are 6 times more likely to complete suicide themselves.
Did you think about committing suicide after Zach's death?
I think about it all the time. All the time. I'm not even the same person. Normally, I used to be happy.
For parents who have had children who die by suicide, there is no greater pain. But there is a choice that a parent makes to keep living and to allow, as horrible as it was, the death of a son or a daughter by suicide, to help someone else.
Well, I've worked in adolescent mental health my entire professional life. And the adolescent years are the time of the lifespan where most of the severe mental disorders arise and can be diagnosed for the first time. So depression, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, psychosis such as schizophrenia, bipolar illness, manic depression, the eating disorders, substance abuse. If I was to say, look at all the people that die by suicide, what proportion of them have a mental disorder? The vast majority do.
Wow, what a story. Zach, 15 years old, takes his life, and Deborah, his mom, walks into the scene.
Maggie, as a parent, you're a parent, I just cannot imagine the pain. You see it in her, but I know she's now trying to make a difference, for others that are having to go through that and preventing to have to go through what she's gone through. Now, you have a story to share.
Yeah, I've had two people in my life who have taken their lives, who have committed suicide. And I know, as Deborah was talking about, just all the things that Zach was going through, it always, I just remember both incidents where I just felt like, what could I have done to have changed the situation? Is there something that I could have said? And truth is, there probably isn't. Scenarios happen, situations happen, and I always think open communication is always key, and that doesn't always solve the problem. But I just hope that somebody watching today that might be even thinking about this, if there's somebody in your life that you can just talk to, who you can share intimate thoughts with, and just let them know that this is what you're going through, even just finding a counselor, somebody who doesn't know you at all, if you're afraid of judgment, please do so. Know that there are loved ones around you that want to journey with you and want to hear your struggle. They wouldn't want their lives to be the same, or their lives would not be the same without you. So I hope that's an encouragement to you today.
My youngest daughter is actually going into psychology and is, just really wanting, from a Christian perspective as well, needing God's help in this, because, as she was growing up, in her teens and early 20s, a lot of her friends were coming to her with, these thoughts of depression, and, she wants to make a difference, and there's a lot of others I know that want to make a difference as well, because this is, as we said at the top of the program, an epidemic. To keep this program healthy, and we call it Huntley Hope, and you may be thinking, wow, where's the hope? Well, there is hope in Jesus Christ ultimately, and we want to continue to be that light to Brian, right across Canada. So we do appreciate your best financial gift today to keep us strong. 1-800-265-3100, or you can go online 100huntley.com/donate. And again, we do very much appreciate your help as we bring these very important topics to Canadians and through the internet all over the world.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
God's love is like a fire. When it ignites and when it spreads, it can transform anyone.
I called 100 Huntley Street the prayer line, and that was a real turning point in my salvation.
We serve a God who can take the ashes, the broken pieces of our life, and He can make something beautiful.
So I said, God, if you're this real, I will do anything that you want me to do.
God's love story can inspire anyone to make a difference in the lives of people around the world.
We are very sure, we are very optimistic about our future, because we know we will plant, we will have water to drink.
You become influential by setting a new pace. The gospel is timeless.
Every single person has a story, but we're all part of God's greater story, which is the greatest story of all. And we do appreciate your support of this ministry. Greg, we've seen, record numbers of young people suffering or going through anxiety issues, depression. We've heard of social media attributing to that. While we're all so connected, we're still very isolated.
And I think, again, the whole bullying thing and just the horrible things that are going on in our world, we just really, as parents, we have to be very cautious, and as a community too, and sometimes we have to rely upon our children, to help us and even inform other parents, So anyway, there's one young woman who turned to social media as a way of communicating her hope in the midst of tragic circumstances, and from the documentary Inside Teen Suicide, here's Kaitlin's story.
In Grand Rapids, Michigan, where suicide rates have been on the rise, one teen has decided to reach out to people through social media after seeing her own mother tormented with thoughts of dying.
In January, she tried to commit suicide but failed. She took 24 pills of Valium, and she went to find the keys to go hang herself in the barn, but my grandpa woke up and rushed her to the hospital. My freshman year of high school, she had this surgery on her lungs because they thought she had cancer, and the doctors gave her a lot of medicine, and I feel like that messed her up a lot because she wasn't the same person after she came back. She was on a new medication every week for her depression and paranoia and anxiety. She was really depressed, and she cried all the time. I'd find her in her room crying. She used to tell me that no matter what happened, she'd always love me. And she told me that some nights she would come and tell me that she wanted to kill herself. Me and my mom got in a fight, and then I told her I was going to my friend's house. My grandpa told me she went on a walk, and I remembered that she like went to the woods to go think about things, and like I just kind of knew that something was wrong, like it wasn't adding up in my head. So instead of taking the short way to the woods, I took the long way because I just knew something bad was gonna happen. I don't know how, I just did.
The shock of finding her mother hung in the woods was nearly unbearable.
I went in and then I saw her in the woods, and I didn't know really what to feel. I felt like I was in a movie, and I just was like, I was just shocked, and I didn't know what to do. I was frozen, and then I just started screaming at the top of my lungs trying to get help.
Kaitlin responded to her mother's tragedy by taking to social media, reaching out to others that are thinking of taking their lives.
It helped me get over it because I like to just like write stuff down when I vent. Normally, I just put videos like fun with my friends on, and then I made this one and decided to put on it too.
Kaitlin's video quickly received nearly 1 million views and thousands of responses. Hundreds of people saying it stopped them from taking their own lives.
It made me feel really good about myself that I could save somebody's life. It was just incredible. I haven't really seen any positive messages through social networking, and so I thought maybe I could like try to change it up a little bit and like make it more positive than negative.
Well, Maggie, in my opinion, Kaitlin is a hero to, have to go through and endure what she did with the death of her mother. But to be able to turn it around and to save lives, I know that it won't bring her mother back, but certainly she is bringing hope and comfort to a lot of people and using an incredible tragedy for good.
Absolutely. Well, recently I got to sit down with parenting expert, teen expert Brett Ullman, and we chatted about this new phenomenon, this new series called 13 Reasons Why, which many have said has become kind of a trigger for young people to start thinking more about suicide. Let's take a look.
Hey.
Hey. Hannah, I'm not going. Not now. Not ever.
Why didn't you say this to me when I was alive? My husband and I, we never got a note.
Hey, it's Hannah. Hannah Baker. Settle in, because I'm about to tell you the story of my life. More specifically, why my life ended. And if you're listening to this tape, you're one of the reasons why.
So you've seen the series. What do you think?
As a 45-year-old, I've seen probably thousands of hours of TV in my life. And this was probably the most profound show that I've seen. Riveting, shocking, emotional, brutal. I mean, the suicide scene was brutal. I can't remember the last show that made me cry, and this one did. I think that it is a perfect reflection of where our kids are today in society, teenagers in both Canada and the US and their high school environments.
There's been, a lot of talk about the glorification maybe of suicide in this show, the talk of it being a trigger for young people who are watching. What are your thoughts about that?
I would agree. I think there's many triggers in this show. I mean, there are 2 sexual assault scenes, 2 rape scenes. There's lots of drug and alcohol use and abuse. There's bullying. There's so much conversation on triggering. But for this conversation, it's usually the suicide one people are worried about. And I would agree. I think we need to define the word triggering, too, so people don't understand that. It's the idea if someone who is suicidal or depressed, or maybe even not, but someone who watches this show and thinks, maybe this is a good way to end the pain that I'm dealing with. Remembering that suicide is wanting your pain to end, not wanting your life to end. But it leaves us with this weird catch-22. How do we have a conversation on suicide without talking about suicide?
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is remembering too, triggering is not always a bad thing. Triggering doesn't mean you're going to do it. It just means it might bring up emotions or different thoughts. But if we're going to walk down a path of hope and healing, we might have to walk through that pain and through some of that triggering if we want to head down a path which leads us to some hope and freedom from those struggles that we do have.
So I'm going to pick up on that. So do you think that somebody watching, or a young person watching, who's thinking about this, thinking about committing suicide, might be seeing this story of Hannah thinking she's getting revenge on everybody and I want to get revenge? Do you think that could cause something? I mean, you don't have a crystal ball, but would that maybe entice somebody to do this?
I hear from both sides of that conversation, and I understand both. I hear school boards and churches and parents who are worried that it might make their kids go down that path, and I hear students who write me and say, I've been suicidal for years, and this show was such a breath of fresh air, just realizing the world I live in and the struggles I have, and I realize I don't want to be Hannah. I don't want to walk down that path.
If there is a teenager watching who has gone through bullying, maybe going through depression, what would you say to that young person that's, maybe even watching 13 Reasons, or maybe not, but just going through their own struggle?
I would say very simply, hold on. What you're going through in life is a season, and seasons change. Hold on. Bruce Cockburn, the Canadian musician, used to sing the kick at the darkness till it bleeds daylight. And I would say this is a fight, and we need to fight. And if you're struggling, we need to walk through those conversations. First, I would say, please go and talk to an adult. Go talk to your parents, go talk to your teacher, go talk to a youth pastor. And unlike in 13 Reasons Why, where all the adults just seem incompetent, that's not real life. In the show, that's the way it is. But if one adult is incompetent, find another adult and talk to someone else. And I just say you're not alone. I struggle with anxiety and depression and panic. I had a breakdown a few years ago. I spent a year at home. And I say in my Walking Wounded talk, we need to address these things from 3 different places. One is the physical aspect. Go see a doctor, right? Make sure there's nothing physically wrong with us. Eat better, sleep more, all those kinds of things. And then go find a counselor who can help you get some strategies on how to help you in these, doesn't matter if it's bullying, suicidal thoughts, depression, how can you walk through that journey? And then lastly is our faith, right? Prayer, and then prayer groups and community around us. And it's all those things put together which will help you walk this path towards what we want, which is freedom.
Brett, I enjoyed my time with Brett because he brought so much insight into this phenomenon, this thing that everybody's talking about, 13 Reasons Why. And how do we help young people, as they're contemplating this? And I think what better person than Brett, who has also suffered through anxiety, depression, speaks to many young people about this issue, and to share with them that there is hope in the midst of all of this.
Now, you have watched some of this 13 Reasons. What is your opinion? Because as I was listening to Brett talk, it brings awareness, but it also might lead and trigger others.
I just felt it was a very dark series. I couldn't get through all of it. I'm still struggling to get through it because, as Brett said, it's very, it's for a mature audience. And Greg, one thing that really shocked me in that interview is Brett said that he's spoken to young kids, like 11, 12, 13 years old, who have watched 13 Reasons Why. So I would just also warn parents, if you've heard of 13 Reasons Why, if your kids are talking about it, I would encourage a conversation because it is for a mature audience. If me as a 38-year-old could not handle it, I would not allow my 10-year-olds to watch it.
I don't think I'll watch it either. I just, there's just so many things, but I can see kind of the both sides of it. But I hope in some way that we have brought hope to you through this program. And if you do need prayer, if you need somebody just to pray with you, to encourage you, or maybe give you resources of if you're dealing with that or have dealt with suicide in your family or among your friends, 1-866-273-4444, and we do have people standing by that want to help you out.
Also, if you would like to purchase a copy of the documentary Inside Teen Suicide, start this conversation now. Please do go to our e-store. Thank you for watching Huntley Hope. Have a great day.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a member of the Canadian Council of Christian Charities. You can write to Crossroads, P.O. Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R 4M2.